Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to challenge your very perception of our place on Earth. Think about it. When you walk outside, look at a massive mountain, and then look at a sprawling city skyline. You probably see two completely separate things, right? One is nature, the other is human. What if I told you they are so intricately intertwined that you literally can't study one without the other? That is exactly the core of what we're unpacking today in the fascinating world of human geography.
To get us started, I want you to ponder a really provocative question. Are humans the masters of nature, or are we its slaves? It's a heavy question, for sure, but it immediately dismantles that false dichotomy we always create between the physical Earth and human society. You see, throughout history, geography has wrestled with this massive debate. Do we just blindly adapt to what the Earth gives us, or do we use our tools to bend the Earth to our will?
Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to define human geography, meet the foundational thinkers, explore the naturalization of humans, then flip it to the humanization of nature, and finally, look at stop-and-go determinism. Let's get right into it. Starting off with Section 1, what is human geography? We are moving far beyond just looking at maps and rocks here.
At its core, human geography is the synthetic study of the relationship between human societies and the Earth's surface. It basically proves that the divide between physical nature and humans isn't actually valid at all. As a field of study, it's highly integrative, it's empirical, and it's super practical. The Earth essentially consists of two major parts, physical nature and life forms, and yes, that includes us humans. They are truly inseparable. Think about how we even describe physical geography using human metaphors. We talk about the face of the Earth, the eye of a storm, or the mouth of a river. Human geography specifically studies this constant mutual interaction.
Moving right along to Section 2, the foundational thinkers. Let's see who originally framed this grand historical debate. So who actually sparked all of this? Who is considered the father of modern human geography? Take a quick second and see if you can guess. If you guessed Friedrich Ratzel, you are absolutely correct. Ratzel is credited as the father of the discipline, which really came into prominence with his 1882 book, Anthropogeography. Now here is a fascinating detail. Ratzel was actually a strong supporter of Charles Darwin and his concepts around the survival of the fittest. Because of that, he firmly believed that the course of human history and the development of a people were deeply influenced by their physical location and the natural features around them. He heavily emphasized a synthetic study of this relationship to truly understand our place on Earth. But, Ratzel wasn't the only voice, and this quickly built into a major intellectual conflict. In one corner, we have Ellen C. Semple. She focused on the dynamism between the, quote, unresting man and the unstable Earth. Her dynamic view laid the groundwork for what we call environmental determinism. Then in the other corner, we have the French scholar Paul Vidal de Lablache. He offered a very different perspective, focusing much more on the synthetic knowledge of physical laws and the living beings inhabiting the Earth. His relational approach sparked a totally different way of thinking called possibilism. And that leads us perfectly into Section 3, the naturalization of humans. Let's explore that first extreme of the debate. Do you happen to know who famously pushed the idea that man is a slave of nature? That is a heavy, intense phrase, but it perfectly captures the philosophy of the early environmental determinist, heavily championed by scholars like Ellen Semple. But what does being a slave to nature actually look like in practice? Well, environmental determinism takes us back to the early stages of human history. Think about a time when the level of technology was extremely low. Because our social development was so primitive, humans were massively influenced by their natural environment. We literally adapted to whatever nature dictated. Without technology to buffer us from the elements, early humans existed as naturalized humans. They listened to nature, they were terrified of its fury, and consequently, they worshipped it. Nature was a strong, dictating force. Simply put, Mother Nature was the absolute boss. To really picture this, let's look at the story of Benda. Benda lives in the wilds of the Abuj Mod area in central India. His life? It is in complete dictated harmony with nature. His tribe practices primitive shifting cultivation. They burn small patches of the forest, just enough to make the soil fertile for their survival. He relies completely on the forest to provide what he needs, whether that's chewing succulent leaves or searching for special herbs like gajiera and kuchla to barter. And when he drinks from a stream, he gives thanks to Loi Luji, the spirit of the forest. Benda's entire society is directly dependent on nature. The environment dictates his absolute reality. Okay, let's pivot completely to the exact opposite extreme in Section 4, the humanization of nature. What happens when we stop yielding to the Earth and start conquering it? Enter
possibilitism. Scholars like Vidal de la Blache push this idea, arguing that with the passage of time and the development of society, humans naturally develop better, more efficient technology. We essentially move from a state of necessity to a state of freedom. Technology is the real game changer here. It shows a society's cultural development because it proves we understand natural laws. Think about it. By understanding genetics, we conquer diseases. By understanding friction, we conquer the cold. Technology literally loosens the shackles of the environment, allowing us to create our own possibilities. Nature slowly gets humanized, bearing the permanent imprints of human endeavor. To see possibilism in action, let's contrast Benda's story with Kari's. Kari lives in Trondheim, Norway. Now, nature dictates that Trondheim should be absolutely miserable in winter. Fierce winds, heavy snow, and skies that are just pitch dark for months. But does Kari yield to nature? No way. She drives an artificially heated car to work. She works in a university campus built under a massive, climate-controlled glass dome that keeps the snow out and lets the sunshine in. Even though nature says absolutely nothing green should grow there in winter, Kari eats tropical fruits, like bananas and kiwis, flown in daily. She networks with people in New Delhi with a simple click of a mouse. Kari lives in a completely artificial, humanized landscape that totally defies the harsh constraints of nature.
So we have Binda submitting to nature and Kari dominating it. How on earth do we resolve this tension? That brings us to Section 5, Stop-and-Go Determinism.
To find a balance, geographer Griffith Taylor introduced a brilliant concept called neo-determinism. Think of it as a middle path. Taylor realized that the extreme ends of both environmental determinism and possibilism were pretty flawed. His theory totally nullifies that strict either-or dichotomy. He argued that yes, human possibilities certainly exist. I mean, we can build massive glass domes and fly kiwi fruit around the world, but these possibilities only exist within the absolute, undeniable limits of nature.
Let's walk through Taylor's traffic light analogy, because it makes this concept incredibly easy to grasp. When you're at a crossroad in a busy city, traffic is regulated by lights, right? Well, Griffith Taylor says our relationship with nature should work the exact same way. Step 1 is the red light, stop. We absolutely must acknowledge that nature has limits. Step 2 is the amber light, get set. This is where we pause, we evaluate our technology, and we see what possibilities are safe to pursue when nature permits the modification. And step 3 is the green light, go. We can proceed with our human development, but only if it doesn't damage the environment. Because here is the fundamental truth. There is no such thing as a free run without accidents. When developed economies sped blindly through the intersection, attempting a free run of possibilism, it resulted in huge disasters like global warming, ozone layer depletion, and receding glaciers. We can conquer nature, sure, but only by obeying it first.
Now, geography is a discipline that is always evolving. As we moved past these early philosophical debates about nature versus man, what approach became dominant by the time the 1990s rolled around? We can track this evolution pretty rapidly. We started with early colonial exploration, then shifted to mapping unique regions in the 30s. By the 50s and 60s, we were using physics and computers for the quantitative revolution. But people felt that approach really lacked humanity. So by the 1990s, we arrived at our answer, postmodernism. We basically stopped looking for grand, universal theories and started focusing much more on local, specific human contexts. Which brings us to the end of our explainer. But I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. As technology continues to create seemingly endless possibilities for us, will humanity heed the red lights of nature, or will we just speed blindly through the intersection? Griffith Taylor warned us decades ago that ignoring the traffic lights of the natural world leads to disaster. Understanding human geography isn't just about memorizing where things are on a map. It's about understanding the delicate, inseparable relationship we share with the very planet that sustains us. Think about that the next time you turn on your heater or eat a piece of fruit shipped from thousands of miles away. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.